There are playoff games in the NFL. There are play-in games. There are play-out games. Last night was a play-on game for the Dolphins. Why things, though, could still be looking up, even at 3-6. The news of the day, Courtney Cronin's here with the latest on the Bears, a firing in-house. And this from when Ole Miss stormed Georgia. The Bulldog on the field with a friend after the team lost. Is there any explanation for this? We'll go around the horn.
Short answer, no.
Not a great look.
Mark called his guy an idiot.
Come on, Pope.
For that. Not my words, his words.
We'll start with the news of the day from Chicago. The Bears firing offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. I know this because you reported it, Courtney Cronin. Some more. A move has been wondered through 3-game losing streak and Caleb Williams, the offense going backwards. But I want to get your take, Courtney, on the additional reporting from Mark Silverman, ESPN Chicago. A number of players approached Matt Eberflus asking for this move, and that also a number of veteran players requesting Caleb Williams to sit and Tyson Bagent to start. Courtney Cronin, what are you hearing? Around the horn to you.
Tony, the reason that this had to happen is because Caleb Williams' regression over the last 3 games clearly spelled the end of Shane Waldron's tenure in Chicago. And there have been a lot of frustrations expressed by players. We've heard it for weeks since the Hail Mary game. And then beyond that, when the offense couldn't get anything going in Arizona. And then what happened this past weekend against the New England Patriots. This is an offense that is underperforming, is underutilizing its top skill players, and is one of the least efficient in the NFL. Like DJ Moore, week 5, 2 touchdowns, haven't seen him since. Same thing with Keenan Allen. After week 6, Cole Kmet and Caleb Williams have the highest completion percentage between them for a quarterback tight end combination with at least 25 targets, and Cole is not being utilized in this offense. Like very clearly, people inside Halas Hall, from the coaching staff to the players, are frustrated with the way that things are going offensively. But this isn't just a Shane Waldron problem or an offensive problem that's going to be fixed necessarily throughout the rest of the season. This is a Matt Eberflus problem. He's 14-29 as the head coach of the Chicago Bears over 2.5 seasons. He has now fired 2 offensive coordinators in the same calendar year. He was so proud of this process that led him to Shane Waldron talking about the communication element and how he teaches things to players. And then yesterday, when he was asked about the biggest issues that he alluded to would need to change, he talked about the in-game communication. So in the short term, this gets mitigated, I guess, Thomas Brown becoming the play caller, but long term, this is an Eberflus problem he can no longer run away
But one follow-up, that's a huge headline, again, from Sylvie, that veteran players are maybe wondering if Caleb Williams should go to the bench for a bit. Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I'll say this. They have emboldened players. They have the 8 captains. 4 of them are on the offense, one of whom is Caleb Williams. These players' voices carry a lot of weight inside Halas Hall. And we'll find out soon. Matt Eberflus said that there will be no switch at quarterback. If it will remain Caleb Williams going forward. But we'll find out soon how players end up reacting to the change in offensive coordinator and those voices that are being reported. If that stuff ends up getting
All
quieted.
right, Tim Kalishaw, around the horn to you on whether this move fixes the Bears' woes.
Well, it doesn't fix it, Tony. I've been doing this a few years, and I can safely say offensive coordinator is the number 1 fall guy in sports. A lot easier to get rid of than a head coach or a quarterback, and it happens a lot. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't have done it. I think it sends the right message. The Bears acknowledge we stumbled into, through the Carolina trade, the best quarterback in the draft. We did not prepare a good enough foundation all across the board. That includes on the coaching staff. So you can start there. It doesn't fix the fact they've got injuries all over the offensive line. New England was blitzing, and they weren't picking up any of it. They've got to deal with that the rest of the year. I still think it would be wise to have Caleb Williams sit a few games.
Okay, so you do think maybe some time on the bench just to take it all in would be something that would be good for Caleb Williams. George Sedano, I turn to you. Here's some points. You maybe foresaw this at the start of the season. So there you go. Please, floor is yours.
To quote the great Denny Green, the Bears are who we thought they were, Tony, okay? When you look at this, and let's start. Hold on a second. I need to stretch for a second. Yeah, early in this season, you guys asked the question, who has the better infrastructure around them? Some semblance of that conversation between Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. And I specifically said, there's no way it's the Bears. You got a defensive coach in Matt Eberflus. You got a guy in Shane Waldron who in Seattle got passed over eventually got passed by who was his quarterback's coach, who eventually became a head coach in Carolina. It goes to show you there was plenty of other issues along the way, too, with players even complaining about him openly on a podcast, not realizing they were on the air, but then deciding to lean into it once they were on the air. This thing spelled disaster from the beginning. And look, that doesn't absolve Caleb by any stretch of the imagination. Caleb is holding on to the ball way too long, despite a bad offensive line and no real run game. He's throwing across his body. He's trying to do all the stuff he did at USC, and you just can't do that stuff in the NFL. But yes, this is a big problem for the Bears, and it's not going to end with just Shane Waldron.
Okay, but to follow up on Tim's, you think some time on the bench would be good for Caleb Williams and the Bears?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes. Look, Tua Tagovailoa had to go to the bench a number of times under Brian Flores because Brian Flores wanted to try to win games and make sure the veterans were happy. He did it with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Tua didn't love that, but I do think Tua was better for it.
Frank Isola, can you start there?
Gentlemen, you might be missing the news of the day. They just changed offensive coordinators. You don't change your offensive coordinator and then bench the starting quarterback. That's not going to happen. I think a lot of this goes back to Jaden Daniels. Number one, did they pick the right quarterback? That remains to be seen. Who threw the Hail Mary pass? And the Bears have been reeling since that moment. This is clearly the head coach knows he's in trouble. So like Tim mentioned, the offense coordinator, defensive coordinator, they're like the hitting coach in baseball. You throw them aside when things aren't going well. They gave up 9 sacks in the last game. What great plays is he drawing up that aren't working when your quarterback is constantly on the ground? He's been sacked, 18, 19 times in the last 3 games. He's 9 games into his career. This isn't year 3. You want to talk about a panic move? It all goes back to the head coach because he knows he's in trouble.
Understandably. You answered whether they would bench him, and you don't think they're going to. But should they? Would it be good for Caleb Williams to take some time and just take it all in?
You know what? I'm not going to do that just yet. They made the big move. They're 4-5. And hopefully it's nobody on defense complaining about the coach getting the quarterback getting switched. You guys were the ones on defense when Daniels threw that Hail Mary. So I don't want to hear players assigning blame. He's 9 games into it. They decided to go with this guy. I'm sticking with him. The season is not over yet.
Courtney Cronin, last word on this.
I want to go back to what George said when the breadcrumbs have been there all along, whether it was Jackson Smith and Jigba at the Super Bowl, not really offering any glowing praise about Shane Waldron, to Mercedes Lewis telling us earlier this year that several players went to Waldron and said, coach us harder. They had 9 offensive coordinator candidates this past offseason. Liam Cohen, who's coaching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cliff Kingsbury, we've talked about ad nauseum, Zach Robinson, Greg Roman. They could have had a lot of other voices in this position to get this job, but Matt Eberflus went with Shane Waldron, and ultimately that falls on him.
We've been Horn. We'll move on to last night. Dolphins' chances of a wild card spot jumping up to 13% with the 8-point win over the Rams. They never trailed. They finished strong, unlike the last couple of weeks. 3-6 is the 10th seed in the AFC, though. The Rams, same 10th seed, despite the loss, 4-5, and off-putting offensive output. No touchdowns. Biggest takeaway from last night's game around the Horn, George Sedano.
The biggest takeaway is we still got a chance, Tony, if you're the Miami Dolphins. You've got 2 winnable games in front of you. And then from that point on, it looks like their offense, little by little, is starting to look more like the offense we saw last season. Now, they're not the explosive team just yet, but again, Tua is just coming back into the fold here. So I do think that things could be spun a little more positively for them. For the Rams, they had the momentum. They really kind of shot themselves in the foot here because they didn't have a lot of room for error either on their side. They now have, I believe, single-digit percentages chances to win their division, and they've already got losses to 2 of the teams in the division, so it doesn't help them in a lot of cases. I think these 2 teams have outside chances. I don't love their chances to make the playoffs, but they're still in it, is what I would say.
Frank Isola?
Yeah, to me, neither team is impressive. For the Rams, no touchdowns for them. And I give the one thing that impressed me about the Dolphins, though, was their defense. No touchdowns for the Rams. You pressured Stafford 13 times. You got 4 sacks. So we're all waiting for Miami's offense to finally do something. They won this because of their defense. And if you do that, if your defense could play like that, you're going to be in games.
Courtney Cronin?
They desperately needed to snap the losing streak, and to see where Tua is in his return from the concussion, I think, is a promising sign. He's still showing some questionable decisions, I think we could call it, with his pocket awareness. But even when he faced adversity in that second quarter stretch where it was the back-to-back drives with the interception and the fumble, he was able to extend drives. Every time they got into Rams territory, they put points on the board. He was responsible for 5 third downs, too. And the touchdown, he's not making the best decisions by and large, and he's doing too much. Even his head coach said that with some of those untimely sacks. But overall, a promising sign that he's getting back in the right direction.
Tim Kalishaw.
I know George thinks that the Dolphins are still alive because they're just chasing Denver and the Colts for that last wild card. And that doesn't sound like a bad way to go in Cincinnati. But when you're 3-6, I just think you've lost any wiggle room. I think the Rams still have a sliver of a chance playing in a bad division where nobody, including San Francisco, nobody's going to run away with it. But that's going to be a bad loss for them when they look at it.
Offensively, things were clicking over the last month. It looked like, where did it go, George?
Look, Tone, I think with the Dolphins, to me, it's getting Siegler back. I think that was big for them defensively, Javon Holland. But for the Rams, again, their offense, they shot themselves in the foot a lot. It wasn't necessarily just about the Dolphins. I mean, Matthew Stafford, this is only his second game in about 50 games with the Rams that they haven't scored a touchdown. They really had a lot of self-inflicted wounds.
Taking a break here, buy or sell on the other side. It's buy or sell. Check out this Donovan Mitchell 360-degree layup. Beautiful. Man. Mitchell had 36. Season high. Cavaliers, 6-point win over Chicago. And now 12-0, the 6th longest streak to start an NBA season. On how Cleveland is doing this and what it means around the horn, George Sedano.
All right, let's start with the positives, Tony. The positives, I think Kenny Atkinson has done a really good job just kind of fostering a really good environment where everybody is playing really well. I think Evan Mobley particularly has taken another step. He fits into what they're trying to do. His three-point shot is falling at a better clip, certainly this year. This is a guy who was compared to Chris Bosh in the draft process. Defensively, he's fantastic. Offensively, he's becoming better. But here's the slight negative. They have the 24th strength of schedule to this point in the season, so they have had some easy opponents to start.
Tim Kalishaw.
Glad we got the negatives out there from George Sedano on a 12-0 team. They lead the NBA in field goal percentage. They lead the NBA in three-point percentage. Anytime Mitchell and Allen and Mobley have all been healthy, they've been pretty good. We tend to reduce the East to the Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, and Heat, and forget that these other teams even exist. Cleveland exists.
Well, last week you gave us Orlando as a top 4 team. Do you believe Cleveland is even higher than top 4? Let's call them top 2.
Of course they are. And so is Indiana. All 3 of them are.
3 teams are top 2? You lost me there. Courtney Cronin, around the horn to you.
Let's give Darius Garland his flowers, because what he did last night, final minutes of a game that I was at, happened in Chicago, one of those lowly teams in the Eastern Conference
the
that
only
George
reporter
wants to
was
talk
there.
about.
I was there.
The layup with 24 seconds, the 4 steals, a career high. He's been playing some great ball, but this core has been together now for 3 years. Whether it's Garland, Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, they're gelling because they've had so much experience with each other. And the 5-0 in clutch time games, yes, I understand it happened against the lowly Chicago Bulls last night. The way that they're able to finish these games after it got pretty close, I think, is indicative of a team that is firing on all cylinders.
Frank Sola.
Well, Courtney, the Cavs have what your Bears don't have, and that's offense. They've scored at least 110 points in every game. They've gone over 131 in 5 of those games. And if they're healthy, you look at that team. Last night, Donovan Mitchell from the mean streets of Greenwich Country Day School, and he scored 36. 3 players off the bench combined to score 36. They have something going. By the way, they can remain undefeated for another 3 games. They will play the Celtics.
That's what I want. That's what I want. Thank you for looking forward like that. There's an odd little thing that goes on with these longest win streaks in NBA history. The vast majority didn't win the championship. They got to the finals, but didn't. But I'm sure that's what are you trying to get to with the mean streets of Greenwich, Connecticut?
I love Donovan Mitchell. I've already teased him about that. He enjoyed it.
We're not here for that.
He got a kick out.
Buy or sell two tonight. Two returns. I want to get your perspective on Klay Thompson returning to Golden State for the first time. Here's how amped Klay Thompson is.
Be good to see people that you grinded with, obviously, but to me, it's just another regular season game in November.
Dubs will be giving out the captain's hat for Klay Thompson. Fans will love that. And also another return to the court tonight. Joel Embiid making his long-awaited season debut for Philadelphia. Tim, which return is bigger and the one we'll be talking about tomorrow?
Joel Embiid was going to come back at some point. That's not a big deal. Think of 12 years ago, you first started watching the Splash Brothers and wondered what the ceiling for these two three-point shooting guards could be and what Klay and Steph Curry accomplished. It's very cool to see him going back there, even if he just left.
Courtney Cronin?
We're not going to be talking about any T-shirt giveaways for Joel Embiid on his first game of the season because he'll probably be sitting out tomorrow or whenever they play next. But for Klay Thompson, this means something, going back to the place that built him into one of the best shooters that we know, that we've got to witness. And I think it's going to be closure for Klay because he's kind of dodged these questions about what did it mean to leave? What does it mean to restart your career on a team where you're second in scoring right now through the first 4 weeks? I think it's going to be more emotional. It'll hit him when he sees that tribute
You
video
think,
tonight
right?
at Chase Center.
Frank, let me ask it to you that way. How did you hear Klay Thompson in that soundbite we just played for you?
No. He's in denial. He'll get emotional.
Yeah,
Here's the thing, too. The Warriors have actually, they haven't skipped a beat since he left. So for me, the pregame for Klay will be interesting. But you got to love Tim. Oh, you knew Embiid was going to come back. Oh, really? You knew that he was going to come back, Tim. That's the issue, that the guy hasn't been playing. So the last time he played an NBA game was against the Knicks. He had some dominant performances, but this is going to be a big night. The Sixers are struggling. The Knicks are struggling. This will be interesting in Philadelphia.
All right, and George Sedano.
So the Sixers are going to be fine once they get healthy, but this is about Klay. And look, Klay was very hurt. I was around there a ton over the last couple of years. He was very hurt that he was not rewarded with the contract that he thought was requisite of what his accomplishments were there. So I think there's that. It wasn't fun the last year or so around him there because of that, but I do think it will absolutely hit him once those fans, engulf him with the emotion.
You're not hearing
because they love him
bitterness there. You're hearing a reality that it didn't end the way he wanted, but tonight you see him as being somebody who's going to love the positivity. I agree with you. I think he's going to love the positivity.
Yes.
Frank, last word on this.
I love this stuff. I mean, the guy's a brilliant player, but they're going to pay for services rendered? They're paying him based on potential. And let's face it, the money that they use to get these other players in is working out. It's a tough business, but at least he's on a good team in Dallas.
And Golden State also seems better for it. One of those situations where both sides got better. Sedano, Courtney Cronin, thanks for your time today. Tim Kalishaw and Frank Isola can continue that little rivalry and showdown next. That camera shot brought to you by Cowboys Stadium with the sun glare. Kalishaw, Isola, good luck in showdown. Here it is, Ole Miss fans storming the field. You saw this. And here's video that caught the eye of Georgia coach Kirby Smart, a Georgia player in what looks like some state of joy with a fan. It's backup safety Jake Pope, and here's Kirby Smart.
Yeah, what an idiot. Just stupid.
And here's Pope's explanation. Sorry for the way it was taken out of perspective, caused distraction. In no way, shape, or form would I ever celebrate a loss in this program. My longtime family friends came up unexpectedly after the game as I was trying to get off the field to safety and were extremely excited to see me after the game. I was also surprised to see them, and that's the reaction that I gave via the video. Tim, does that explanation cover it, or is it stupid like Smart said?
No, first of all, I hate Kirby Smart's reaction. Does he call all the Georgia players who've been arrested on his watch idiots? Or does he say, we'll let the courts, play out? Secondly, I don't like the jumping up and down. That's the part I have trouble with. That's a little too ecstatic. Hug your friends and move on. Little too much jumping, but it's not the end of the world.
Isola?
Yeah, and then this is what happens when cameras are always rolling. You know that the player feels worse enough. Does he really need his coach to say that, to call him an idiot? Come on, he's being abused left and right. And I'll tell you, this will be a good warning to Tim. At the end of the show, don't be celebrating your loss with Courtney and George. Not a good thing. Just keep that in mind.
There was also the video going around that game telecast caught quarterback Carson Beck and a smile on his face when they were down 2 touchdowns. This is okay.
You're allowed
Not the
to
end of the
smile.
world.
We'll move on. Split the
Not the
points.
end of the
Showdown 2, Syracuse coach Fran Brown. Take a listen.
Honestly, I got like a ritual. Like when we lose, I ain't even getting a shower till early this morning. I just be mad. I just brush my teeth. But it's like I don't deserve soap. I don't deserve to do all that. You got to earn the right to do certain things. So, winners get washed.
Winners get washed? Frank, is soap in the shower only for winners, or is something a loss should maybe still have?
No, you know what? You're a leader of young men, and young men, especially the younger they are, need to be told all the time to wash up. That's a bad example to set. If you're the head coach, that's your thing. Keep it to yourself.
Kalisha?
Don't tell your players that.
Don't really understand the idea of the shower without soap. Don't really understand football coaches telling us over and over what they do in the bathroom, in the shower, before games. We've had a little too
Are you
much
talking about
that
Rizzi with New Orleans as well
Yes.
this past week?
Yeah, we don't need to know about your habits in there. Before.
That gets Tim Kalisha 30 seconds.
You got the Yankees and Mets, Giants and Jets, Kalisha and Isola. It's all the same. Here's what I want to point out. The Big Four, look at the standings. I don't really love all the change in college, but look at the Big Ten. You got Oregon in first place. SEC, Texas, your highest ranked team. Big 12, BYU. And then who's leading the ACC? SMU. They said, we don't need your stinking money. Just get us in the league. We're going to come win it. That's what they're going to do.
23 and a half hour
bullpen win,
break.
Tim.
See you tomorrow.